For this video, we are going to make a robot drive. So the first thing you need to do is open up the VS Code that we installed earlier. And it's going to look something like this. Most of the stuff that we use is going to be over here in this little W. We are going to want to create a new project. We tend to use examples. We're programming in Java, so you click Java. And we're just going to do a simple getting started program. So you're going to want to find a folder to put it in. We're just going to put it on the desktop, so I'm going to make a new folder in here. And we're just going to name it 2020 FRC code. Team number 5576, and then the project name. We're going to be programming essentially the entirety of our Big Red robot, so we're just going to call it Big Red. And go ahead and generate the project, and you can do it in the current window. So over here is what's called your Project Explorer. Everything that we're going to be programming in is under this source, and then Java, and then robot.java. So this is a bunch of code that is given to us. We're going to X out of that for now. This is a bunch of code that is already given to us, and I'll kind of walk through each separate part and tell you what each of it does. Up here is our import statements. This we will add to as we get different devices and stuff that's not already natively supported in this program. And this is our class right here. So this is where we're going to do all of our coding inside of. So the class opens up here and closes at the very end. And then all of these separate little things inside of here are called methods. So this is a method, this is a method, this is a method. And right here is where we're going to declare some of the objects and stuff that we're going to use to do different things on a robot. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we get into the more advanced videos. So if we start from the top down, these all have little snippets of what they actually do. So this is run one time at the startup. This is run one time at the beginning of the autonomous period. This is one time, or over and over again, sorry, at the beginning of the autonomous period. And then at the beginning of teleop, this runs once. And then over and over and over again, this runs whatever's inside here during teleop. So this is where most of our coding is going to be for now. So I'm just going to add a little bit more space inside these brackets here. And then this one is for test, which we don't generally use. So in order to get the robot to drive initially, first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we have the correct motor controllers. So on Big Red, we have the majority of our motor controllers are Victor SPs. And our drive base is solely Victor SPs. So if you look right here, these are Victor SPXs. So those aren't actually what we want because we're using a different motor controller. So we are going to go ahead and change this import statement. If you hit Control Space, it'll give you a bunch of stuff here. And we are going to be looking for Victors. So we are using Victor SPs, so we're going to use that one. And now, since we changed that, all of these are going to need to change as well to fit what we just used for the import. So something else that is going to need to happen, normally we are going to use PWM splitters for our drive base, but on this particular robot we didn't. So in order to deal with that, essentially what this means right now, this is our robot drive, and it's saying that we're using a motor controller for the left side and a motor controller for the right side. So we're actually using two motor controllers for each side, so we need to make sure that it knows that. And the way that we tell it is we're going to need to import it again. So most of the times they're all in this similar library, so you can just copy and paste and change these last couple of things. It's probably going to be in drive, and it's called a speed controller group. So if you look right there, it pops up. So we are going to make a new speed controller. We're going to need two groups. We're going to need a group for our left and a group for our right. So we're going to add some space here. So as a speed controller group, and we're just going to name it, we'll name this one left side. We can call it left controller group because that makes more sense. Equals, and then we're going to say new because this is the first time that we're talking about it, so it's a new speed controller group that it hasn't seen before. And then we are going to want to do specifically in this one, the left side is in slot 0 and slot 1. And then we are also going to, if we do, we have to do the new Victor SP0 and new Victor SP1. Okay, so we also are going to need one for the right side, so we're just going to copy and paste this, and we're going to change this to right. And then for these ones, they are number 2 and number 3. And we got these just because that's where these motor controllers are plugged into on the Robo Rio. Now that we have that, we're going to want to change our left side here to our left controller group, and the right side here to the right controller group. So essentially what we did is we said instead of having one motor controller, we actually have two, and we put them in this group. And then when we're making our actual drive, which is this line right here, we are saying that instead of just using the one, we're going to use this whole group. So it's saying we're going to use these two instead of just the one. And over here, we're going to do the same thing and use these two instead of just the singular one. And now that we have that, we can go to our teleop again. And this is actually the only line that you need to drive the robot, which we already have. There's a couple of things that can change. One thing I like to do right away is just add a true value there separated by that comma, because it basically changes the controls so that way it's easier to control on the low end, but we still have all the power to do whatever we need to do on the high end. So we're going to go ahead and deploy this, and the way you do that is you want to build it first. So when you're building it, you're essentially putting it in a nice little package with a bow on top for the robot to get. So we do build, and then we wait for that. It takes the longest the first time for each program, and that only took 3 seconds. So then after we do that, then we're going to want to deploy, which is down there. So now after we made it into a nice little package, it now is when it actually gets sent to the Robo Rio on our robot. So if we open up the driver station, you will now see that we have we have communications, robot code, and our joysticks that we're using. So something else that I forgot to mention is generally we use, if you look at the driver station, you can click on, so this is for the big joystick. So if you look right here at these axes values, when you go forwards and backwards, you can see that the y-axis moves the most. And then if you go side to side, you can see that the x-axis moves the most. And then if you twist the joystick, you can see that the z-axis moves the most. So that's what these are doing. This stick right here is the stick. It's the joystick or whatever that we just saw in here. And the way that we know that is we're saying we have a joystick, and this is just the name that we gave it as m_stick. And it's a new joystick. It's the first time the code's seen it, and it's in port 0. So if you click right here and look, right here is the USB order, and it is in port 0. So that's how it knows that we're talking about that one. So this is saying we're just going to get that y value and get that x value. So the y is going to be your forwards and backwards. So if you look in here again, if we go forwards and backwards, that y value is the one that's moving. And this is going to get the x value. Well, the x value is actually side to side. So since we want to turn when we twist, we're going to actually want to change that to get z. Okay, so now that we fix this to be the Z, we're gonna rebuild and redeploy. We actually didn't need to do it before because we didn't make those changes. So that's done, and then deploy. Okay, so that should all be good, and we can go back to the driver station. So then in order to actually run our code, we're going to hit enable. If this is like the first time for you coding and you don't know what you're doing, make sure that you have it up on blocks, otherwise things can go kind of crazy. I'm going to get a recording on my phone ready, so that way we can view this other stuff. Okay, so if we enable this robot, you see that the RSL starts going, and this is the joystick that we're using to control it. So if we go forwards, okay, so the robot's going backwards, which isn't what we want. So that's one thing that we need to fix, and we're just going to do it one step at a time. So we'll fix that first. So since the robot's going backwards, that's in our Y value. So in order to negate that, we can just put a negative right there and go ahead and build it again. And then deploy. Okay, and now let's try that again. Okay, so initially when I pressed forward, the robot would go backwards, and that's not what we want. So now that we switched these controls, so the turning is right. So if you see when I push this forward, the robot goes forward. When I pull it backwards, the robot goes backwards. When I twist to the left, it goes left. When I twist to the right, it goes right. So that should be everything we need to make the robot drive. And I think that's all I have for now. So we're going to end this one here, and we'll see you in the next one.